Okay, and we are recording. Looks like we have about 58, almost 60 participants online, so that's great. We will go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone, greetings. If you haven't done so already, please let us know where you're calling in from. You can just enter that in the chat. I see folks from Brazil, the US. I know we have some attendees here from Europe, so it's always exciting to see where people are logging in from today. Greetings everyone, my name is Richard Uphoff and I am the chair of the Human Development and Leadership Division. I am joined by our very esteemed panelists and members of our leadership team, which I will turn over to in just a second, but I want to say a few words at the outset here. I'm joined by Sadida Haji, who is our chair-elect for Human Development and Leadership, and by Kiran Mann, who will be facilitating and leading our panel discussion today. She'll introduce our panelists here momentarily. But I just wanted to mention a couple of quick things. Just first a few thank yous. First off, just thanks to the team, thanks to Kiran, Sadida, Luigi, David, those who promoted this session and those who helped organize and do the tech lead for this session. It takes a village to run one of these webinars, so I wanted to just give a quick shout out and thanks to the team for this session. And then thanks in advance to the panelists. I know Kiran worked hard to select a great lineup of panelists for you. I'm really excited to hear from them today, and I think this will be a great session that a lot of you will hopefully get some important takeaways from. And then finally, just thanks to all of you for joining. Thanks to all of you for taking the time to join us today, to take time out for your own personal development today. These are important topics, and I'll just remind you that this is actually the second in a series of sessions that we are doing this year that builds on our competency framework for human development and leadership. This is the second. We did our first, which was on the theme of leading yourself. This today will be on the theme of leading teams. And then our next session will be on the theme of leading organizations. So I'm excited to sort of develop this throughout the year. And like I said, it ties to our competency framework. So I wanted to just kind of close, and before I turn it over to Kiran, with just a quick story that ties back to our purpose as a division. So I was in attendance at the ASQ World Conference in Anaheim a few weeks ago. I was at our Human Development and Leadership booth there at the World Conference, and as you can imagine, we had a number of participants at the conference come up to our booth, some of whom were familiar with our division, some of whom were not familiar with our division, and who would often introduce themselves by saying, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, what do you do?" And so it gave me a great opportunity to just explain what we do as a division. And that is to just say that we are a community of people passionate about human development and leadership and the intersection of human development and leadership. This panel today is a great example of that kind of outreach. We do a lot of work as a division to create content for members on the themes related to human development and leadership. And this is, again, another great example of that. We would welcome you to go to our SharePoint site, go to ASQ, and find our community for human development and leadership to learn more, to get more of our content. It's free and available to members of ASQ, but we also deliver content in many different ways, and this is a great example of that. So we welcome you to today's session, and if you are also interested in learning more about the work that we do as a division, about how you can get involved, please feel free to reach out to myself. You can reach out through our community channel, through my ASQ, or reach out to one of the panelists, or to our moderator, or to myself as the chair, or to Sadida as chair-elect. So with that, let me just again say thank you. I'll turn it over to Kiran to introduce our panelists.
Kiran, you're muted.
Oh, I just realized that I was talking in while I was in mute. So thank you, Richard. First of all, thanks to our lovely group of panelists today that have taken the time and joined us in sharing some good stuff with all of us. And thank you to all the attendees that have taken the time in a busy day in an afternoon to join us as well. A few things that I would go over. Sadita and I have a long history of doing all the webinars, so we're excited to bring this new flavor this year of doing some events with for you guys. So always welcome your feedback and your thoughts about what you would like to hear in the future from us as a division. There's a group of team that works in the background, so it's a lot of work, as Richard mentioned, for us to put together these events. So if you have any question or comments, as I mentioned in the chat box as well, if we can request you to put your questions in the Q&A, and we will take the questions in between or towards the end as the time permits. We will be speaking with our panelists for roughly around 40 minutes and try to save some time in the very end for some more question and answers. And I think, Sadita, can you confirm if I think we still have 0.1 CEU for all our attendees and listeners for today as well? Sadita, we do, right?
We do have the same, and we'll share that within this week along with the video. So don't worry about taking notes or anything like that if you feel like it. But please use the question and answers for the questions. And I did want to add to Richard's point, because we are also recruiting many volunteers. For now, we would like to give some preference to our members, and we do have some openings for helping organize these events like panel webinars. We have a marketing communication position as well open, as well as a book of knowledge. So a lot of areas to be involved. So stay in touch. Thanks.
My lovely friend Sadita never misses that opportunity. So thank you, everyone. Today's topic, leading teams. So let me introduce you to 3 panelists that we have, Sukhdeep, Christy, and Rick with us today. We'll start with Sukhdeep Kang. She is the CEO of Armor Insurance Broker. She has an extensive experience in the insurance business and in a diverse environment where she is required to deeply understand the critical drivers in multiple markets. She has been very successful in building relationships with upper-level decision makers, seizing control of critical problem areas, and delivering a customer commitment. Focused in driving a team around her. She is a great example right from our industries and market as a leader who has built her brokerage from ground up and runs a day-to-day operation of a multi-million-dollar brokerage with over 8,000 clients. She has been taking direct interest in hiring and training her staff and helps them to grow into leadership roles along with the growth of the brokerage. So thank you, Sukhdeep, for joining us today. Moving on to Rick Denley. He's a sales and leadership expert. Rick and I have a lot of history of working and interacting in different projects in the past as well. He's a best-selling author of Reinvest Yourself, a keynote speaker and a coach who helps develop companies and individual contributors to lead change and achieve breakthrough growth by utilizing his growth formula. Rick's background, he includes a successful career that has spanned several decades and seen him lead Canadian divisions for multinational based in Japan, France, USA, and Germany. Thank you, Rick. Great to see you again and exchange some ideas and knowledge today. Last not lately, Christy Mazzarisi. She is head of quality with a broad background in pharmaceutical and laboratory sciences with R&D and commercial manufacturing experience with over 15 years of industry practices. Overall background and specialties including GMP and GLP, which have to lead strategic management of major programs such as gap analysis and transformation of product quality systems, SOP transformation and optimization. She is also an expert in QMS frameworks and operational system audit. She is very passionate about continuous improvement activities and consistently builds a quality into each area of the life sciences. She is the advocate and gala committee member for the Tourist Association of America, advocate for Make-A-Wish New Jersey, and PowerShift Ambassador for Shark Tanks, Damon John. So Christy, welcome. Thank you all to all three of you for joining us today. We have tried to bring panels which can bring a lot of diversity and share their idea from their perspective and their experience. So we look forward to have a great session for the next 45 minutes and great learning for all our audience. As mentioned before, please make sure you send your Q&A, any questions that you have in the Q&A, and Sarita and I will take it from there and share with our panels to get their feedback into it. So if I can Rick, if I can begin with you. Let's focus a little bit about leaders. You know, as leader, what are the areas that we need to develop? We need to have some particular type of skill sets, the toolkit that we require, mindsets that we require to be that leader that can be called as good to great. The skills that we need to make sure that we are effective enough and strong enough to lead our teams effectively. So in your mind, what do you think, what kind of mindset, skill set, and tool set a leader requires to be great?
It's a great question to start with. Thank you. Thanks for having me today. You know, one of the first things leaders have to do of any team is make sure that they have the ability to help build trust within the team. And any leadership starts with trust, and building trust is so essential. And the interesting and challenging part for leaders when it comes to teams is conveying that to the other team members. How are they going to build trust within themselves? So it's trust within the leadership of the team to lead as example, but then to be able to parlay that into the team members themselves as well, so that they begin trusting each other. You know, one of the things, so many things have changed due to the pandemic, but one of the things that hasn't changed is the format of Tuckman's 1965 model of nurturing a team to high performance. We still, as leaders, need to take the team through the stages of forming, storming, norming before they can be performing. And that's us as leaders that need to do that. So that's one thing that we have to be aware of and continue as leaders of teams.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a great start for any leader to make sure that they can bring that clarity and a clear direction and focus for their teams. So thank you for that, Rick. Sukhdeep, if I can ask you to share that from the practical side, as you were running a group of people under you in your organization, what are the skills that you had to develop over the time to be that leader that everybody, I know from the market that everybody loves working in your organization. You have a very high retention as well. So what are those skills that you had developed over the time that are becoming your successful toolkit?
You know, as Rick mentioned, number one thing is the trust. You know, once you, first of all, self-awareness, trusting yourself, and then building the trust within the team. And, you know, the mental lenses, like sometimes as a leader, you have to look at, you know, as I will give an example. When pandemic came, people, you know, we all were panicking. And, you know, during that panic, the leaders who, I would say, you know, all the leaders are great leaders, but the leader who will look opportunity during those times, it's more of having mental lenses when you even perceive threat as an opportunity. Although there is a threat, but there is opportunity as well. So I believe self-awareness, what is happening around, what is happening within the team. It's you know, there was a lot to learn in the last 2 years. I would say it was, for me, it was an opportunity even to learn about myself, learn about my team, learn about the opportunity, and evolve as well. Like there was, I think in the last 2 years, we evolved more than we would evolve in 20 years. So this is, I believe this is a strength when you're aware that, you know, this is the weakness, we have to work on it. This is the threat, we have to change it to an opportunity. You know, the team is kind of losing morale. Our team, you know, people were all over the place. Many of them were working from home. So you have to bring the team together, know them personally, what is happening mentally with them. Not that our employees were sitting at home, the families were also at home, so a lot of issues were happening. So it was a challenging time, but great opportunity to know people more, to know about myself more, and to know about the organization more, and look at the opportunities more. So I believe that brings, that threat brought great opportunity for us to be aware, to build trust, bring the strengths out that we never thought that people have.
Thank you for that. I think that was a great point to go on to the mindset, that having a mindset where you're not only prepared to figure it out during the tough times, but also you're self-aware of what you're really good at and what your strengths are, and where are the areas where you're not so strong. And we all are, nobody is perfect, but knowing your area of opportunity where you can have a diverse team that can backfill, and understanding from employees' perspective of what is going on around their lives, including their family life, and working team as a team together. So thank you, Sukhdeep, for giving us that real check that all the companies have been facing with. Christy, can you share from your perspective of how the management and the employees, from a management perspective, what type of skills that you have developed over the time, or that you consider that a leader should have?
So thank you. Yeah, I think for me, I might have a slightly different outlook on it. So I've been leading teams remotely, globally for over 12 years now. So before the pandemic, before COVID forced everyone into that remote way of leading. So during the pandemic, I wound up having to help a lot of organizations that I was consulting at the time. And I had to help them transition to this remote way of leading their teams. So I wound up working with a lot of managers and leaders to help them really understand how to build that rapport this way, the way we're doing it today, right? How do we do it on camera versus in person? How do I help them through the challenges they're having at home? Because now we're home with our families, if we have kids or we're caretakers or what have you, right? It changed everything. Whereas for me, it was already very normal. So I had some extra tips and tricks that I've used for 12 years to build rapport with my teams globally. And one of that is, on the back of building trust, it's building that relationship, getting to know the employee as a whole person, right? We're not just our work self. So I believe in this whole self concept where, it's hard to leave baggage at home if someone's having a bad day. So it's really important to take the time to really understand that person personally and build more of a friendship, relationship type of rapport. I feel like that's helped me. And that helped a lot of leaders through the pandemic, where I said, don't focus on work so much. Let's focus on how people are feeling, what's going on at home, and how can we help them that way. Because if they're feeling supported, the work will get done, right? And it will get done well because you're increasing that morale. So for me, that was important.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Christy. I think I love all the points that are coming from Rick and Sukhdeep and Christy. Christy, I always say one of the things that you mentioned about building relationship, I always say that let's find one common connection with each individual. Maybe you like the same sport, or you like the same type of book or a movie, and that allows you to build that relationship on a personal touch, while your professional relationship always will take a little bit more time. Personal connection can be made quicker and help you in strengthening your relationship as well. One of the questions that came from our audience, so I would again tell everyone, feel free to send out your any questions that you have, and I'm going to backfill any questions that are coming our way. A question from Dinesh Kumar Patel. He said, in certain individualistic cultural countries, how do you continue the team momentum and have strong buy-in from everyone involved? So, Christy, do you want to say anything on that?
So one thing that I've always done, because I've had teams across the globe, I've had teams all over, and to keep everyone together and aligned, I thought it was really important to ensure that we got together often in a virtual space, obviously, and then at least try very hard pre-pandemic to get everyone together in person at least twice a year, right? Because to me, the face-to-face piece is hard to leave out 100%. I think it's important to stay together and to get together in person to really create that personal connection. But throughout the year, we made sure we got together for team meetings often where we shared wins and any challenges we had, and we kind of brainstormed some of those things together. And it kept us aligned and it kept us pushing forward. And it allows everyone to build that safe space and really know that there is no judgment there. Because that was one thing that I made sure, that we had a safe space to share our opinions when it comes to wins and challenges and whatever we were working on, and even things at home, So I like to hear the wins at home. What did your child do today that was amazing? Share it with me, or your husband or your wife or what have you. So we shared a lot on a personal level.
Getting to know people more than just your work, because your most of the time is spent at work with the people that you work with. So it's always good to know them a little bit outside the professional scope that we work with. And going on the same note, Rick, would you like to share something about continuing this team momentum and the strong buy-in when we're working among the, I would say, employee strength workforces where different generations, different age groups are working together too, and how do you get the buy-in to have them work together?
Yeah, it's a great question and a challenge for everybody now. This is the first time in history that we've ever had 4 generations in the workplace. That itself is a huge challenge. And we're all looking for the DEI. We're all looking to really hone in on the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece. And team play is a great way to do that. One team using our individual gifts to achieve one goal. So I believe that if we really focus and as leaders clearly communicate one common goal for everybody to rally around, regardless of the diversity that you have in your team, one common goal, allow everybody to bring their skill sets to that and focus on it, then I believe you're going to bring people together. The best teams that I've ever been part of, both in the professional world and in my sporting life, have come around a common goal, one that can be transferred as a dream from the leader of that team. Some of the best coaches I had, the passion that they had for this common goal, whether it's winning a Stanley Cup, which happened recently because I'm a big hockey fan, or achieving great things in industry or in not-for-profit to help individuals and people. When that passion comes from a leader as one common goal, people buy in. People want to be part of that, regardless of the diversity that you might have on a team, the geographical location of people on the team. It's that passion and excitement that we need to convey as a leader very clearly, and just one common goal. And I believe that helps pull people together on a team.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Rick, actually, further to that, if I can ask you again, when we're working with teams that are in several locations, right? How do you manage the in-person team events when your teams are into several locations?
Yeah, that can be a large challenge when you look at the geographical type of diversity that we have. Again, if there's something common, and I like what Christy was saying, something in common for everybody to rally around, then it really doesn't matter where you're located. Whatever city it might be, time zone it might be, country it might be. If there's something that you can get people on board with and rally around, something in commonality, that's very helpful. That in itself will bring the team together. Now, personally, for my teams that I work with, I also have one-on-one so that I can fully and clearly understand what skill sets they bring to the team so that I can support that. We all come to it with individual skills, so that one-on-one is really important as a team leader to understand that individual and what their strengths are, and that will help complementary bring everybody to the same goal. So one-on-ones are pretty important, as well as the teamwork and commonality.
Yeah. On the same note, there's a question from Emma from our audience who has touched further on that they have a situation where they're trying to do team events, and the team is all over different locations, and how they can go to the management and approach them for, travel allowances and to make sure they can bring the team together. So from my perspective, I feel like that there is no one answer for that. I guess every organization, every team play differently. Sometimes you can have a combination, you know, like Rick said, do a lot of one-to-ones where you're doing that, or doing team events too virtually. And then, you know, you can do little thing virtual stuff and then do a one in person. So it helps everybody with the budgets as well, but it also serves the purpose of connecting. Like we are famous in HD&L, our division. We do everything virtually, and all of us are in different countries and time zones. And then we will do like 1 year, one meeting, meet in person, build those personal connections with each other. Anything you guys want to add to that?
So I know what I've been doing over the last couple of years is having people in so many different places. We've done a lot of virtual happy hours, virtual talent shows, which is quite funny and quite interesting, and that really breaks barriers if there are any. You know, everyone's showcasing what they can do. So that's kind of interesting. You know, it's more on the virtual side to save budget, but having at least one in-person event where you can get everyone together to me is still really important to do some team building and, you know, other types of things. But we have done also some team building virtually as well, where, you know, we have people in different conference rooms that we can all see each other and we do the same activities together at the same time. And like with events like walks and things like that, you can run those virtually and you could do them from site to site. So I've helped some really large companies coordinate walks for different nonprofits where each site has their own team and everybody walks on the same day for the same cause. So I've seen things like that been done over the last couple of years as well.
That's actually a good one, you know, like they feel connected because they're doing the same activity, just be in different places.
Mm-hmm.
We can pick the Top Gun movie and everybody can just be in different places and watch the movie and feel like we're looking at the movie at the same time.
So I would like to, share my practical experience. We have done those, events, virtual events during pandemic. And then I got the feedback. You know, we send a survey to people and the feedback came, although we are doing it, but we are actually not doing it. So we all were on the, WebEx and all, cooking or doing some activities. But when the actual feedback came that it is kind of superficial, although we are trying, this is the time, we have no other choice. But this is not how employees like. Most of my employees, they came back as soon as we were open. They said, we enjoy the touch, feel, emotional environment. And I believe most of the companies are kind of losing employees. The retentions are very low in these days. And personally, it's my personal opinion that that emotional environment is not there anymore. People are not as connected virtually as we would if we are going to the same office every day, meeting people every day. Like sometime on lunch, we talk 30 minutes to one employee. If someone is having a bad day, we pull the person and talk personally. With virtual environment, that is not possible. So that touch, feel, emotions are kind of, we are losing that. Although the world is kind of, it's evolving very fast. And I think the choice will be in future. It will be more, 50-50 or maybe 75 virtual and 25 in person. But I think we are losing those, I won't say these are values, but those, there is a value of being personally involved and being present physically.
Yeah, I think probably Christy can add to that as well, because when we were doing a dry run, this question came up. And personally, I feel that the people that can work remotely without any issue are kind of like developed and have that kind of a skill set that you have to be very independent and organized because nobody's watching you. You have to understand that I'm not working with a clock, but I'm working with the responsibilities and deliverables that I have to do. And if you have that kind of a mindset that you can keep going, but then you have to be self-motivated when you're working alone because there's nobody else around you. You have to make sure you're getting up and dressing up Otherwise, if you're going to be in your PJs, after fifth, sixth day, you lose that morale of getting up and dressing up that you do for work. So I feel you are kind of like a particular cut to be able to do that. Because as general, we want to be outside the house. Just because you're home, you're in the same environment, you may have all the family around you, and they're not thinking you're just sitting in front of the computer. They sometimes will think, are you really working? You know, you get underestimated, and then there's the noises and everything. So there's a lot of those things that employees really had to go through when they were sort of forced during pandemic too, and they wanted that to come out of that. Christy, what have you seen with the people that actually did work remote successfully as well?
So, like I said, I've been remote for a long time. Not to say that I don't love getting out of the house and having, you know, those face-to-faces. I do. I enjoy the time when I have them, but I feel like they're more purposeful meetings in person. You know, we really think about when should we meet in person versus when can we do things virtually, right? And I found that a lot of the teams that I've been working with, most folks are actually enjoying remote more than they are in person, at least from my perspective, because they feel they have more flexibility. They can work towards their personal goals a little bit better. They get more work done. They're not sitting in traffic. They're not doing long commutes. There's more time with family. I mean, I can see both sides of the spectrum, you know, and not everybody's cut out for one or the other. But I have noticed, like, even for me, I actually don't know if I ever want to go back to an office anytime soon, besides for those really important special events, team building, you know, things like that, kicking something off, training. But I think from a day-to-day perspective, for me and for like the teams that I've been leading over the last 12 years, I have asked, you know, do you guys want to go back to the office? Do you guys want an office? You know, a lot of times it's, no, please don't make me, you know, and that's what I've been seeing. But it might also depend on, you know, what these people have going on at home too. Correct. You know, like if they have their kids, it's easier to be home, right? If they're a caretaker, it's easier to be home. So I guess it really depends, but that's what I've been seeing, you know.
Yeah, looking at the two sides of the spectrum, you know, Sukhdeep's team has been the ones that are eager to come back, whereas Christy's team is like, leave me alone at work. But so I guess it really depends. It's a customized answer, I would say, for everybody. You have to know your team, your culture that you have, and kind of make a decision based on that. Like Sukhdeep mentioned about the surveys they did. So assess what is working in your group, what your people are really asking for, and does that meet the requirements of the business to find a customized solution.
Let me build on that a bit if I can. A couple of ideas.
Yeah, please.
You know, it comes down to two things as well, right? It comes down to discipline and self-accountability.
Yeah.
And not everybody has those skill sets. So as leaders, again, we have to help teach those in different ways and bringing that team together. I want to give you two examples that occurred with some organizations I was working with through the pandemic. One was in regards to connecting people somehow on a more social level, but also keeping them fit and active. So we said, well, how can we do that? How can we combine it? So what we ended up doing was bundling up all sorts of Fitbits, and we sent them to all the team members. And as soon as they opened them up and turned them on, they were already logged in, and you can do this whole group thing, Fitbit and other type of ones. So everybody had this little internal competition to make sure you were out there doing your 10,000 steps. And everybody could see the results, so there's a bit of peer pressure to get it done, and it tied everybody together, and it became sort of a game as well. Then we said, okay, how can we make this even better? And every morning we would start off with what we used to call Monday morning stand-up meetings, but they were virtual. That also made sure that nobody was still in their PJs and things, and every morning everybody got in the habit of, hey, let's go, cameras on, and by the way, let's put up the results of the steps from the last day. So it drove a few different initiatives as a team leader, and everybody got behind it, and it did pull people together in different ways. So there's just two examples that leaders might want to try to help keep their teams going in this virtual world.
That's amazing points that you have further added, and like the way you mentioned about the stand-up meetings, I think that's always a great kicker nowadays. And also is making sure your videos are on. You know, there was a time when pandemic started and people were like, oh, videos are off. And now you just really are looking at a screen and hearing a voice and not people. I have had so many clients where we had to kind of excite them that, okay, let's see who's going to put their video on today, right? And slowly people felt comfortable to put their videos on when they're in their home environment. And that's a great one too. I have one client that actually started a WhatsApp group, and they had to pick one task they want to do that they haven't been able to do so far, and the rest of the group is going to hold them accountable. And it went from making kitchen cabinets to buying stuff for their gym. I just have to place an Amazon order from 6 months and I haven't done it, hold me accountable. And that's how they crack up and really, you know, connect together as well. Rick, while you're on the screen, I'm going to ask you a question that came up from the audience. How do you lead teams during major changes, especially when a new CEO and massive cost-cutting initiatives are on the go?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, my book was called Reinvent Yourself, and it's all about change. And the interesting thing with change, of course, is that there's really only two types, right? There's a type of change that we're enthusiastic about and passionate about. That's self-change. We go, I'm going to go in this direction. I'm going to make a change. That's a great one. It's the one that comes our way that we didn't ask for, don't like, and didn't anticipate. COVID. And that's the one as well that we still as leaders have to get out in front and lead. You know, everybody says, oh, we have to embrace change and things. No, you have to lead change. Either way it comes to you, we have to get out front and lead it. So what happens in an organization? Well, you have to explain and really paint a good picture as to why this change is going to occur, what the outcomes will be, and how it impacts each and every one of your team members specifically, and explain that to them. And that's where the other side of leadership now comes in with empathy, because it's not going to be easy for people to change. But regardless, you have to, as a leader, be able to bring them on board, hear their challenges that they're having with the change, and then somehow share that dream, have them rally around the change, and move in that direction. Not an easy thing right now. So there's quite a bit involved when you look at how to initiate and drive and lead change.
Amazing, amazing. I think our questions are really flowing nicely as I'm reading through the ones they're posting. Rick and I mentioned about all the 4 generations that we are part of, and probably we're part of the history that way, I would say, as professionals. A question that came from Emma is that she has had several indirect reports in the past 4 years, and soon she's going to have 4 direct reports. So many people have told her that, you know, you're going to need to change your management style once you get your 4 direct reports. And she's saying that I find that building good relationships with my team and fostering teamwork and understanding their work-life balance. She's a believer of you catch more flies with honey. So according to her, if you're treating your team well, you know, she's doing a great job. So, and it will work with her and with her teams. And she wants to know what our thoughts are. I'm going to add 1 cent on that, Emma, is that I personally feel that as a leader, you have to have that flexibility that you can maneuver your style depending on the person that's standing in front of you. You know, you have a skill of leading, but if a person, like we just had a discussion about Sukhdeep's team wanted to come back to work and Christy's team didn't want to come back. So as a leader, we have to have that flexibility, self-awareness, and knowledge about ourselves that we look at our team and understand that how we're making sure we're taking care of them, but we're also meeting the business goals that we have in front of them, and then create a rapport with them to establish. So, Deep, what do you think on that? What have you experienced with your team so far?
You know, I agree with you. It's basically you can be a great leader, but the great leader will have to understand who your audience is, whom you're dealing with. If you're dealing with 25-year-old young employee, you have to deal differently. And at the same time, if you're dealing with a 55-year-old person, it's a different. Demands are different. And then also the roles. You know, if someone is doing data entry, it will be different role. His demands or her demands will be different. And then we are dealing with the salesperson will be completely different mindset. So it is always, you know, as a leader, we have to keep evolving That's where I said in the beginning that self-awareness is very important. Sometimes we are human, as a leader, we are human. We have a tendency, sometimes we can also be stubborn with our own thoughts. But it is not the time. It is the time is changing so drastically. People are changing so drastically. And like last 2.5 years, I have seen a lot more change than I have, in the past. Maybe it was challenging time. Maybe it was the time when we were more involved dealing with employees than even business. Last 2.5 years, we spent more time, money, and efforts on employees, taking care of their mental health, taking care of, what is happening. Actually, sometimes digging what is happening in their life. It's not that they will come and tell you. Sometimes, as a leader, you have to go to their level to understand what is happening in their mind. For us, it may be a very minor thing. For an employee sitting on a floor, it may be a big deal to deal with. So it's kind of, as a leader, mental lenses have to be very clear. We have to know what is happening, understand the team, understand diverse cultures and generational gaps as well. Like sometimes I always say I'm old school, but I have to deal with young people. So I learn from them, and then I have to work according to them. It's not really that I will say yes or no, but at the same time, if you don't understand, if you don't feel what is happening in their life, then, things don't work the way we want. We are all goal-oriented. We all are focused people. But the time has changed where we are more working with employees rather than working as a leader and giving, it's not top to bottom. It's a now bottom-up approach now.
If you're not engaged, then they struggle to engage back with you. So Emma, I hope that gives you some information. I think your management style is great. Only thing to keep a watch is the fine line, many times the direct reports, indirect reports are your friends as well. You could be sitting outside having a lunch in the lunchroom, and then you come to the offices and the boardrooms, and now they're reporting to you. So having that fine line where, you are having the honey and fly deal, but on the other side, when it's work, making sure accountabilities and deliverables are in check is important as well. A question that came from team, that I want to advocate for my team and providing them the space to make their own schedule and decisions. I use weekly hurdles as a way to maintain accountability and project status. What would I watch out as a new manager with this style of management? Christy, do you want to take a start on this?
Sure. So I think the weekly huddles are a good idea. That was kind of something that I have done for a long time, is making sure I get everyone together when I had a global team or a team that wasn't face-to-face. It was a good place to maintain that accountability. And I think if you're doing that, that's a good start. But again, that's a place where you have everyone together in one spot. So I think another way to hold accountability that's a little less in front of everyone is back to, I think, Rick's point, where he mentioned one-to-one. Those are also super important. And that's a safer space to really give good feedback if there are issues with accountability or what's going on, from a personal life perspective, and also to gain feedback on your management style, because to me, I ask for feedback on myself in all of my one-to-ones. So, and even in wider meetings, but in a wider weekly huddle, let's say, not everyone's going to be as open to say, hey, I think you need to change this about what you're doing right now, So those one-to-ones are going to also play an important part.
That's a great one when you can do that as a leader. Thank you for that. One thing, team, that you probably also want to consider on weekly hurdles is for accountability is the deliverables, right? So if there is a clarity of what is to be delivered and by when and by who, it allows people to make a due date and then work backward as well. And then they will look at what their hurdles are that will stop them in reaching and making those commitments. Rick, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's an important topic, and a lot of generations right now and people have been given more freedom than ever before, whether it be working remotely and so on. And we have to make sure that we're sharing that autonomy with them. They want that autonomy. They're hungry for it. But with that autonomy comes that responsibility and accountability that we spoke about earlier. And there's your checkpoint, whether it be a monthly meeting. You know, I'm big on KPIs, but not just key performance indicators that are lagging, which most people do. Did everything get done? What are the results? But the leading ones. Are we doing the right behaviors that lead to the correct results? Those are the ones that we want to be measuring and monitoring as we go. And you'll be able to tell pretty quickly if somebody's not meeting the expectations of the KPIs that you agreed upon by putting them in place. And that's when you have the sidebar with them and the one-on-one. And again, like we said earlier, different leadership styles for different people now. You know, we really have to be a chameleon as a leader. And what type of individual are we dealing with? What's their generational makeup? What are their personality styles of the forward? You know, you're disprofiling and approach it in that manner. Not disingenuous or unethical in any way, but just tweaking it a little bit so that they're comfortable dealing with you. That type of empathetic approach to them will help them open up to maybe the challenges that they're having, like Christy said earlier. Maybe there's issues at home. Maybe there's personal issues. We have to be really open to those and then help them where we can or get them help necessary and then bring them back on track if you see that they're not meeting the goals that have been put in place for them. But there's a lot of autonomy out there. Everybody wants it, but I don't know that everybody can handle it right now. So as leaders, we have to keep them on track.
No, thank you for that. Christy, can you begin with, let's talk a little bit about conflict resolution, right? It's become, I don't know, it's getting more attention than ever before, given that teams are working remotely in different locations. You know, we're going through a phase of high cost cuts and price increases, which business owners are being challenged with. There's a lot going at, you know, competitive side, but at the same time, a lot going with shortage of staff. So there's a whole big puzzle piece that business owners are dealing with, and at the same time, they have to make sure their teams are collaborating well and they can figure out how to effectively use conflict resolution or conflict situation. What are your thoughts on this? Keeping in mind the different 4 generations we're dealing with as well.
Yes, but I think, again, that goes kind of back to, you know, having to change your leadership style depending on who you're talking to. But I can say from a conflict resolution perspective, I feel like for me, since switching from face-to-face all the time to remote, I've had a lot less of that to deal with. And that's probably because you are removing some of that more personal interaction. But in the instances where I have had to step in and do some conflict resolution, a lot of times I like to try and leave it where I can to the employees to kind of hash it out together. And I try to push them to have that conversation because we're adults, right? And no matter what age group you sit in or what you are, we're all adults and we're all here to do a job. So I try to empower them to try to, you know, talk about it together and to just put it out there, because it's a lot easier to just have the conversation than to keep having these, you know, weird feelings that they may have about, you know, what this person may perceive, because a lot of it is perception, and a lot of times we're wrong with what we're perceiving from somebody else. So sometimes just having that clarifying conversation gets rid of a lot of conflict that they thought was there that may not actually have been. So, and then if the employees aren't feeling like they can do it on their own, I'm always there to support them and step in as that, you know, extra voice of reason between them. But I try to, again, going back to what's our goal together. We're all here for the same thing. And then also, what are our perceptions? Because perception is reality to most people. And it's trying to just understand, well, my perception could have been wrong, and here's why.
So, Sukhdeep, any conflict resolution tips that you can share with us?
For me, I believe it's a more of open communication, you know, bring both the parties together and share your views. And sometimes, as Christy said, it could be perception and no clarity. So clarifying the issue, you know, helping them, and again, making each other understand that it is not personal. It could be just, you know, this circumstantial. It could be just, you know, as I said, we kind of dump everything on COVID. It could be, you know, just effect of COVID. So I think she said it very right. It's a more of a clarifying the issue and bringing the teams, having open communication is
Yeah,
key.
I
Yeah.
think bringing together the feedback from all of you before I ask Rick, I would, you know, I like the part where, you know, you allow them, just like we do to our kids, that, hey, why don't you just sit together and resolve it before you want the dad and the mom to get involved? And same kind of formula works in the workplaces too. You know, why don't the two parties sit together and figure it out, or stay in the room till you can figure it out and come out before somebody else and the people above have to join. And if it reaches a point where you do have to join in a conflict situation, one thing that has worked for me is unveiling the perception and the judgments and the assumptions. You know, many times it's a game of assumption. I assumed I did this, what did you do back for me? Or I said this and this is what you did. It's that game where we have a lot of assumptions and we judge each other and then we assume. And once you unveil those things, it becomes like it wasn't a big deal. You know, end of the day, you're working here together. Let's start with that relationship. Rick, anything else that you have come across that you would like to top it up with?
No, I mean, you know, as you know, I'm a parent as well as a leader. You know, I don't solve all my conflicts this way in my amateur boxing and Great Funds for Cancer. We do talk things through as well. You know, I love the idea of just ask questions, really dig deep into it and understand it. I mean, if you have one piece of chocolate cake left and two kids fighting over it, what you might find out by asking the actual question, that you don't have to split it down the middle for each of them.
Yeah.
Because you found out through the right question asking that one wants the icing and the other wants the cake on the inside.
Yeah.
So there's your problem solved without having to intervene too much. So yeah, get them involved, make sure they see each other's viewpoint to start with, and ask some in-depth questions. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, and as a leader, I would say it's a skill. Like, not many leaders feel so comfortable handling conflict situation, and it's a skill to you know, remove your emotions and be that person who's going to be the listener and trying to get the people together. But a great one to have, I would say, as a leader. One thing where we are running out of time, so a couple of minutes that we can spend. While we talked so much about remote teams and, you know, all the goods and the things that we can use and the tools that we can utilize, many remote teams are not just departmental teams, but are also functional teams. So it comes with a lot of its own challenges and the things that you need in your toolbox to make it effective. Rick, let's start from you. What do you think are any one challenge that you would say and how to overcome it to make functional team work together effectively?
You know, the one thing we mentioned, I want to reiterate, it's a common goal. That's very important. But I think right from the very start, leaders have to ask themselves a key question. Have I chosen people with complementary, collaborative, and diverse and coachable approaches to problem solving for their team? So I think we have to take it back a step even beforehand and make sure, are we choosing and building the teams correctly? If you get all the people in the same room with the same skill set, you're not going to get to solve the problem that you want. I like to take it back to that to start with and make sure that you're choosing complementary skill sets. And that means really understanding each of your team members thoroughly. So I've taken it back a step to the beginning. When you're building that team, make sure that they're complementary skill sets to each other, a diverse group, and that all the individuals are coachable. That's going to solve a lot of your problems from the start.
Yeah, no, great one. Sukhdeep, anything from you? Or do you have cross-functional teams?
You know, we do, and I would agree with, you know, Rick. It is more of when we choose the team, we have to pick the right people. You know, they have to be coachable. You know, we have to know them before we bring them as, you know, team members. So if they're coachable, if we know what we want from them, it's very easy. Sometimes, you know, it's because it was for us, it was a kind of shift from in-person to remote. So it was a kind of learning for us as well. Like in the beginning, we made mistakes, but once we know The team has to be coachable. We as a leader should know what we want to get out of them. And then, again, making team efforts remotely as well, like, what we are doing here. We have a team, actually, a big team in India. So we are constantly in touch with them. We are sharing what is happening, and we do have expectation, and the goals are set very clear, like this is what we want. And we have appointed leaders there, and they are basically helping us to collaborate with the Canadian team.
I think you both have really summed it very well. It's very important to have clear direction, deliverables, expectations, but then have a superb communication to make sure it's working and tune it as needed. Christy, any thought from you on this?
No, I mean, I think they summed it up well. It's about having the right people in the right seats.
Yeah.
I do for the team. Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing that I have felt is that as leader, what is very important is when we're picking these right players for our functional team is understanding what their key job is, their primary job, and what type of day-to-day departmental work they already have, so that we can understand the load and the work they're going to require part of our functional team and how much time it will require. Many times with what I've seen with my clients is that it brings a conflict because they are loyal to their first job and they're being asked as given mandates for the secondary functional job, and then it gets that conflict that arises. So for our audience, keep a watch for that too. Any final thoughts, if I can ask all three of you to take turn? Christy, any final thought that you would like to share?
So I guess as a little takeaway is just empower your employees, right? You hire them to do a job, let them do it. It increases morale, leads to less risk, less turnover. So, try and empower them to do what you need them to do. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Christy. Sukhdeep?
I think it is the time to know people more on personal level, understand them more, and empower them. As Christy said, it is the time to empower the teams and let them run the show.
Yeah, amazing. Rick?
It's very important, as we know right now, to be an empathetic leader, as we mentioned, but it's also important to be a strong leader. It's time for leaders to stand up as well. There's nothing wrong with being a strong leader, making decisions and giving very clear direction. Most team members want that from a leader. They want a strong leader that can stand up, say, we're going in this direction, we need your help to get there, let's go get it done. That type of confidence breeds good teamwork together.
Yeah, I think it's all about teams, right? Understanding, making those connections, be human. I always say believe in human-to-human organization. End of the day, it's customers, departments, suppliers, employees, employers, but end of the day, we all are human. So let's remove those walls and work together with common mission. Thank you so much, guys. It has been amazing. And thank you to all the audience for all these amazing questions. We were going in such a flow. I felt like you guys knew what question is coming and what is the next one that needs to come. I really didn't have to jump in. I was going in a sequence. So thank you, everyone, for great input from audience and our panelists. It's always great to have you all guys together. Especially I'm seeing in the messages, all different cities and places you guys are from. So appreciate that. And thank you to my HD&L team to work all in the background to make this event happening. So as Richard said, till we meet again with our next event, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.